All right, welcome everybody to the regularly stated meeting of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission. Today's date is Thursday, September 7th, 2023. This is to formally advise that as required by General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 18 through 25, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into the law on June 16th, 2021, as extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, the Yarmouth Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting at the date and time noted above. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided on the notice meeting available on the Town of Yarmouth website. So we're getting ready to move into the meeting. I am going to take a few things out of order, and I also want to make everybody aware that the continued notice of intent for SE 83-2397, Roy Okarowski for Paul and Nancy Cruz, 52 Prince Road. The applicant has requested to continue to September 21st, so we will not be taking any hearing or hearing anything on that one for tonight. All right, with that, I'm going to actually move back to enforcement. Get that taken care of first. This is for 56 Camp Street, unpermitted alteration of the buffer zone to a resource area bordering vegetative wetland by unpermitted vegetation removal and regrading. All right, so the homeowner, do you want to come up to the microphone, please? And I'll ask Brittany just to briefly describe what's going on with this one.
Sure. So here is an aerial image of 56 Camp Street.
Hey, you're gonna have
Do
to
you
sit
mind
down,
sitting
okay?
down, please, while we do this?
Listen up, please. You have to be a good boy. Come on.
Could you please sit down?
Come on, I got candy for you.
All right. So here's the aerial image for 56 Camp Street.
You're gonna have to have him sit down, okay?
He has a microcephalia. He's a special kid, first of all.
I understand that, but he as long as he stays back,
I
okay?
know.
That's
You
all
know
we're
what I
asking.
said to my brother outside to my kid. Go to the car, puppy. Just take off some. Come on, go. He has candy for you, son. Gotta be a good boy, okay? Listen up. Sorry about that.
Thank you. All right, Brittany, go ahead.
Sure. Here's an aerial image of 56 Camp Street. There's a bordering vegetative wetland in the backyard. There's an existing fence and lawn in the backyard, but the 35-foot buffer extends to about in the middle of the yard. I got a call, report of activity this week, and we went over there to find that significant excavation was occurring in the yard. About a 2-foot grade had been taken out all the way up to the fence. And that's within the 35-foot buffer, but that's the only resource area buffer. It's not in the flood zone. And it was existing lawn. I think they just removed a single tree. No other vegetation was there other than lawn. And so I filed a draft enforcement order, and they did put up erosion control measures as were required, silt fence and a straw wattle, to prevent erosion from entering the wetland.
Okay.
So I would suggest to the board that we would either require the conditions be returned to the previous conditions and a tree planted, or for a restoration plan to be submitted in order to initiate a vegetated buffer, perhaps to the 35 or smaller, since it was lawn originally.
Okay. All right, so any questions for Brittany? Okay, do we have, and it was, I forget, it was the seal coating company that did the work?
It was, yes. Superior Seal Coating was the company there.
Okay, and have you had any words or conversations with him yet? Oh, you're him? Okay. All right, so do you know that you're working within the wetland area? Can you come on up to the,
No.
all right, and you are, just for the record, could you state your name?
Renato Carneiro.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so certainly there anytime you're working within 100 feet of wetlands or wetland resources, you have to at least check in with conservation to make sure that there's no permitting that's required. Okay, generally, when you're within 100 feet of a wetland, it doesn't matter just a pond, or it could be a bordering vegetative wetland stream or anything like that. You need to make sure that you contact conservation before you do any work. Okay, and they'll guide you based on what you are, what kind of projects you're trying to do. They'll guide you with a kind of permitting. I think this is pretty straightforward. I would say if you, have you written it up yet, or is this the signature sheet, have you written the rest of it up yet?
I was going to let the board decide.
Okay,
We're going to have them remove all the bluestone dust and bring in some material that will be supportive of mitigation or returning it to its original condition.
so either, yeah, I mean, you either have to remove it all and return it to the original, or, file for whatever you're trying to do. But if you're working, I mean, you have to at least restore the portion to the 35-foot buffer.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So prior to this, there was what, just vegetation along that edge that they dug up?
Yeah, so here's this is from 2021, and you can see the fence line here. It looks like there's a tree, but it's hard to tell what was there prior. Was there any shrubbery back there, or is it just lawn and that one tree?
Grass, that one tree and grass.
Okay, yeah. There wasn't,
It was all grass.
yeah.
So that brown area was all grass?
Excuse me.
Yeah,
So you
sure.
said 2 feet, but 2 feet was just at, if you go back. in the
Yeah,
picture,
approximately.
Right there. But in the bottom was basically because it was going downhill, so it was like 6 inches.
That's why I told you the last time, when
Well,
the day is rain, the water coming through, I can't even walk there. It's coming from the street. The water almost take me over to the fence.
Yeah, so that would be the benefit of having vegetated buffer to the wetland, would help absorb a lot of that water, instead of it being lawn. But
And also, it's not safe for the kids. You see, for the play area in the back, and the front is very dangerous because a lot of cars going through. It's no space. And the back, like he said, it's like this. The water stuck there. You can't even walk there. For my son,
Well, what were you trying to put in?
I try to make, I'm from Ecuador. I like to play volleyball. The Ecuador play volleyball for me and my son, and the basketball.
like a hard court is what you were going to put in.
No paving, just the base.
No, just the base, whatever it is, just I want to add. They have already the sidewalk for the cars. They have already 10 feet wide. Just I want to add more because you see the picture when I show you the water going through. You can get control with the water like that. It's very dangerous for any person, not only for the kids.
I don't understand how that's relevant to the excavating in the backyard, the water, but having it be vegetated with shrubs or even lawn would be better than what it was going to become.
I mean, I guess I would prefer to see some sort of maybe even a small strip,
A row, yeah.
maybe 3 feet, right along the entire wetland board, along the what is that, a fence there, right?
Yeah.
So just on the house side of the fence, do maybe a 3-foot buffer strip of vegetation.
But isn't that just 10 feet from the wetlands, so it'll only be 13 feet away from the wetlands, well within the 35 feet?
That is true, but it was previously existing
Perhaps
as
not up
lawn.
Until that point, though, so that's, I mean, they had grass,
For a long time.
Once it's been disturbed, it's.
Start over.
I mean, in the past, we've determined that once a situation has been disturbed, we make them provide mitigation that is significantly more than 3 feet, Mr. Chairman.
so you're saying 35 to the 35 foot?
Yeah, that's what we've always done.
Is that what you want to do?
Well, wouldn't it be appropriate to have some sort of a planting plan at this particular point where they can,
We have to tell them what they need to plant to, though. How much do they have to plant?
okay, do we have to do that at this juncture, or could
Yes.
they
Yeah.
go and get some kind of
Let them know what they.
opinion based on some expert to say this is what you could conceivably do?
No, what Rick is saying is, I mean, traditionally, if it's a disturbed buffer, we require, if this were a project, if they were coming before us to do this project, we'd require mitigation to fill or, substantially fill the 35-foot. So, I mean, if the feeling of the board is you want to see the 35-foot restored, then that's what we should say, but that's what they need to aim for then with their plan.
Right.
Yes.
Where is the 35-foot in this picture?
I would have to bring it up on the,
It's going to be,
Oops.
probably half the yard.
yeah, it would probably go up all the way to the point where they stopped excavating.
Yeah, I think I excavated like 40 feet, I believe, from the fence.
Ooh. I don't have all my layers here.
20 would be half the distance that he excavated.
That's approximately, the changing color is kind of where the lawn dips, and that's about where they excavated to.
So it still leaves a good amount of room
So
beyond
there
that.
is a significant amount there.
It would leave a lot of lawn there, yeah. And it would be significantly less on this side, since the fence is further away.
Well, I mean, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I think he needs to do that.
I'm sorry about that. I just buy this house. I come from New York, and I have no idea how it works here. So, over there in New York, it's totally different. So my backyard, I just do concrete. And I have no idea how the rules going over here. Nobody told me exactly how it is. And I just buy this house and I'm start to do the work. If I know the rules, I will come over here, start talk about permit something, how I have to do it, follow the rules.
Well, I mean, if you were going to do this, if you came in to put in a basketball court with any kind of hardener like that, you would have to come before the commission with a notice of intent. And we would require you to do the same kind of planting that we're asking you to do now. Because you would have to mitigate for the hardscape that is being put in. So, I mean, and ultimately, what we're asking you to do under the enforcement order is the same thing that you would have been required to do if you would have come in and were following all the rules right all along. So, there's really no difference there. But I think what the board is asking and is going to require you to do is to take the 35-foot market and then plant that area. You'll have to provide a planting restoration plan for that 35-foot buffer, and then you bring that back to the commission to look at. And if we approve that, then that's what we would ask you that you plant, and then you would be square in terms of the violation. Okay, so the only thing, it's like, I don't think, you're certainly not gonna be able to get this planted and done in time for this planting season, along with a plan, but I think you could aim for the plan to be received by, what are we, in September?
October.
I'd say the end of October, realistically.
You might want to explain to him that if he doesn't do this, he's potentially fined.
Okay, so what we're asking you to do is to work with a landscape, somebody who does landscaping and who has the ability to produce plans, all right? They don't have to be stamped, they do have to be some sort of a plan that, where they can look at and look at the area, and then plant native plantings. And they'll have to tell us what kinds of plants they're going to be using, and the number of plants and all those sorts of things. We're asking that you get a plan submitted to Brittany by, what did I say, October 30th, 31st?
Yeah,
Okay, by the 31st of October. That shows what you're going to do. And then, you won't be able to plant at this point because it'll be too late in the season. So then we would expect that you plant sometime after mid-April, but have all of those plantings in as approved by the end of May. And as long as you stay with those deadlines, everything will be working fine. You don't have to worry about it. If you choose to ignore all of this, then we will start fining you. And if you don't do the work, then we'll fine you on a daily basis. So it's important that you take this seriously, and that you start working and looking for a landscaper who can help you with this plan. All right?
So you mean I have to put it back everything, same was before?
You actually have to do a little bit better because it was grass there. We're asking that you put some other type of native plantings back in the area from the fence to 35 feet away from the wetland.
So cover everything, same was before?
That's about
and it'll help with the water flow going down there, because the plants will absorb all the water that's going down there.
If you look back to that picture, so where is the start the 35 feet? Because I noticed it's crooked.
Yeah.
Because maybe like in the front there, it might be like 2-3 feet from the fence. Because the fence is right there, see? That's the fence. So it's like 2-3 feet from the fence. The buffer zone right there. So basically over there is good, right?
Yep.
there, but
So it'd come out.
when you come to the south and west,
Yeah, but after the 35 feet, he can do whatever he wants, right? Or no?
For the 35 feet, yes.
no.
So my question is, how can I tell
right.
where is the buffer zone, where the buffer zone starts?
You're going to have to get somebody to come out.
So
and
get a
delineate.
surveyor?
Yeah,
It's
Okay.
usually a wetland consultant that
Yep.
will come out and delineate the wetland boundary, and then you take 35 feet off of that boundary marker. So that's how you'll figure it out.
And then you have to come up with a plan and present it to us
I got it, yeah.
by October 31st.
Can you print that for him?
I can send you an email of this photo. But these are approximate since it's done by mapping software. That's why we need someone on the ground to mark the boundary.
You don't have a printer over here?
I can't print it for you right now, but I'll send you an email with it.
Also, you can print it for me, they gotta be nice, please.
I'm in the middle of a meeting and there are other items, so I can't print it for you right now, but I will send it to you in an email.
Via email.
So on the side there is conservation too? Or is just the back?
Over here,
Yeah.
there are no mapped resource areas over there, but I can't say for sure without having someone investigate the area.
So he can extend his driveway like,
His driveway is on the edge of his property.
okay.
But if he's extending much beyond the house, he's in jurisdiction, so he
Yeah.
will
Yeah, we have
to come to conservation if you want to extend.
You see
the
that
driveway.
right there, basically he wanna go the driveway all the way to, right there.
Yeah, whatever the driveway is just 10 feet wide, I think.
What do you got?
100, that seems fine. But
So if you're
our
coming-
jurisdiction,
But that's what we're saying, is if you're coming anywhere closer coming this side, okay, moving to the back of the house, you are in jurisdiction, and you would have to come to conservation before you do any kind of expansion of the driveway.
One more chocolate, please, because just want this picture.
so the restoration of the lawn would have to go all the way back up there.
Please take this away from me.
So the conservation is more important to about the kids, the people.
It's not, there are
We're
laws.
not going to debate that. That's, everybody is dealing with that, with, under the same law.
If you have like this space, the kids can't even walk. So I mean, I put a lot of money here for what? We should buy one family house close to the beach, small house. No make no sense to spend a lot of money there to buy a big house for nothing.
It's, that's your decision though, right? I mean, if you want to live at that house under those circumstances, that's what you have to do. That's, we require everybody to do the same thing. We hold everybody to the same standard.
I don't see you guys try to help me up. I told, let's try to make nice for the kids, for the people, try to make the safe place, but you guys don't help me up, nothing. I mean, I have to sell back this house.
Okay, I think we're done, all right? Do you understand what you are responsible for doing?
Yeah, I have to put it back everything. You say that, and then I have to look somebody to, if I have to do something else.
So you will need to hire a wetland consultant to determine the boundary of the wetland. You'll have to have a landscaper who can do a landscaping plan that's going to show how you're gonna put the 35-foot, what kind of vegetation you're gonna put in the 35-foot buffer, and it must be native plantings. Okay, so, and you need to have that plan delivered to us by the 31st of October.
October or May?
The plan has to come in by October 31st. You won't be able to plant because it'll be past the planting season at that point, unless you can find somebody who can do a plan very, very quickly.
October, what do you say? 31st?
October 31st.
I'm going to send you an updated enforcement order with all of this information
I appreciate that.
via mail and email. So you'll get a physical copy and an email.
Thank you.
Okay, so are there any further questions from the board?
No.
Do you have any questions for the board?
No.
I do.
Yes.
So I'm gonna try to help him out,
Mm-hmm.
get a consultant. Do you guys have any names?
I can send you some people who have filed with us before,
Yeah.
but we can't recommend anybody
Yeah,
specifically.
no, yeah. And so let's say, okay, he's putting back everything, but can he put back like only from the 35 buffer?
If you're going to be doing something more, if you're going to be adding hardscape or anything from 35 foot to the house, then depending on what you're doing, you may have to come, so you'd have to talk to Brittany as to what you're trying to do. So if you're trying to put in some sort of like a hardscape,
You just want to make it ground level because it's steep. You know what I mean? So the kid can play, so they can,
So that would probably be you'd probably need a retaining wall.
yeah, over where it was like 2 feet higher, he was gonna plan to do something over there, and the bottom would be flat. That's what I mean. Cause see
Okay, so if
at the corner over there, 35 feet doesn't even touch the fence.
so if you're going to regrade, if you'll need to fill and regrade,
Yeah.
that's going to be a significant filing. You would need the help of an engineer for that. Because when you start regrading and using retaining walls, then we're going to start looking to, again,
Yeah.
for the safety's sake, we're going to want to have an engineer sign off on the retaining wall.
If he's not bigger than 4 feet, you don't need, right?
If the whole thing is under 4 feet, including the footing, then no, you don't need the engineer.
That's like 2 feet, no more than that. So
It
We would still need
be
to have
within
some
the
sort of an
50.
engineered drawing
yeah.
that's going to show the new grading. Okay?
Sounds good.
So the engineer, you guys, I can get from here any engineer information
I know some
about?
guys.
Oh, you know some ways? All right.
Okay. So all those in favor of
But you need
issuing
someone
the,
to, you need someone to move it?
He hasn't said it yet.
sorry, so would somebody like to make a motion to issue the enforcement order as discussed?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Sorry,
All right, so Brittany is going to send you an updated revised enforcement order that's going to give you the dates, and she can also supply landscape names, those sorts of things as well if you need those, all right?
Yes, please, because I don't know too much here.
Thank you.
All right,
you.
thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, next, we're going back to the beginning of the meeting now. We're moving to a
Right.
presentation for the 2023 Open Space and Recreation Plan update. And
evening.
thank you, Kathy, for putting your presentation off a little bit. That, I
No
appreciate it.
worries, no worries. Thank you for having me, and thank you for forming the ad hoc committee that helped put together the Open Space and Rec Plan, and Ellie was on the committee, as well as Will Rubenstein from the Planning Board, Christine Marzigliano, who's also here from Open Space, Steve Szanski from Recreation, and Gail Charette. They did a yeoman's level of work in a very short period of time, as well as all of the great town staff that we have working with us, and then also consultant Weston and Sampson, which, thank you, you also provided the funding for that. So, excellent work. Every 7 years, we need to do a new updated open space and rec plan. Mainly, we want to be sure that we're maintaining our eligibility for a large number of different grants that are out there, and it's also going to be a very large supporting document within our local comprehensive plan. And it's always a good idea periodically to, take a look at what progress we've made, taking a look at our community again, our environmental resources, and kind of do another inventory. And then using a lot of public participation, reevaluate the town's open space and recreation goals and needs, and then take a look at different action items that we can undertake in order to accomplish those goals and needs. We've had a lot of public participation so far. We're very lucky. We had an open house in February, and we had 2 online surveys, one in the winter time that we asked for a lot of different information from people, and we used that information from that survey in order to develop some draft objectives and action items, which were then vetted through the second survey that we have. And right now, the draft open space and rec plan is available for review, and we've extended the comment period through September 20th, and the link is there, and then any comments can come directly to me. So we went and we took a look at our community setting. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through all of this because I know you got lots of other things on your agenda item, but we wanted to get a good background information on our community so we understand where we stand and what our recreation and open space requirements might be, what our population characteristics. We're kind of an older community, so that plays into the different types of recreation we might be interested in, and also the different types of growth patterns, our infrastructure, and then a long-term development patterns that we have. We did a very long and extensive inventory of an environmental inventory and analysis. We took a look at our geography, soils, and topography. And in a lot of communities, those things really restrict development. Here on Cape Cod, we don't have a lot of that, and you kind of see the result in our development pattern because we haven't really been restricted by those typical items. We looked at our landscape character, our coastlines, all our wonderful kettle ponds. We spent a lot of time talking about our water resources, which you guys know very well, our saltwater and freshwater bodies. We obviously have some issues with some surface water quality. We all know about our nitrogen loading issues, and also taking a look at, obviously, our wonderful floodplains that we have and our wetlands resources, and then also taking another look at our groundwater resources, which is our sole source aquifer for our drinking water. Did an evaluation of vegetation, fisheries, and wildlife, and then again, following up with some scenic resources in unique areas like scenic vistas that we might have, all our historic areas. We also took a look at the environmental challenges that we face. We don't have a lot of contaminated sites, but we do have some sites that have some spills that have been remediated. We have the old landfill, and we also have like the Acme Laundry. Obviously, we know about our water resources and wastewater impacts and potential stormwater contamination impacts. We also have a significant housing need here, and sometimes when you have one heavy need, it might push against another resource, so we want to keep that in mind. We have erosion sedimentation issues with regard to coastal line erosion. Obviously, flooding is continuing to be a challenge, especially as sea level rise continues. We want to make sure that we're not having a lot of forestry deforestation and to promote development. The main development in Yarmouth is residential development with a lot of redevelopment associated with our commercial areas. And then we also took a look at environmental equity to make sure everyone in town was being treated fairly. We have a lot of environmental justice population in the town for minority and for income, so we wanted to see how these different environmental challenges, whether they were disproportionately impacting that community. We looked at all of our wonderful inventory of our conservation recreation lands. It says we have over 1,000 acres. I think it's probably over 1,400 acres of town protected conservation recreation lands, which could be our parks, our fields, our very large acreage on our golf courses, and then, of course, all of our wonderful beaches. And we identified all the most frequently visited areas. I think we're all very familiar with these at Smuggler's Beach, Flax Pond, Seagull Beach, obviously Gray's Beach with the Bass Hole Boardwalk, Peter Homer Park, and also Taylor Bray Farm, or the historic farm on the north side. We also looked at all of our different conservation areas, which we have a lot of wonderful conservation areas, including the Meadowbrook one on Swan Pond, the Horse Pond Conservation, Callery Darling, which, I mean, you guys know where these all are. Up here, the Dennis Pond, the Crab Creek, the Bud Carter, Raymond Sinjala Conservation, never get that one right, and then, of course, the Sandy Pond Conservation Area. So we took a look at analyzing what our needs are and kind of what our vision is related to open space and recreation. So we wanted to be sure that we are actively managing and protecting and improving maintenance of our open space. We hear a lot of concerns about maintenance, so we want to make sure that that's something that's highlighted. We want to look at expanding our open space through acquisition properties and doing it to preserve, to create additional recreation, or to protect the natural resources, or just the wonderful quality of life that we have here. We're also looking at improving our environmental resource protection through studies and projects. We have a lot of studies that are going on in different projects that we'll talk about later in the action items. We're also looking to offer and expand year-round recreational opportunities and programs, different recreational programs for all ages, and then maintaining and upgrading our different amenities and open spaces, kind of focusing on completing all of the half-completed projects that we have going on, or projects that are already funded. So we are lucky that we have a lot of projects that are fully funded at this point. Also improving signage and wayfinding on existing properties, and then, of course, improving and upgrading our handicap accessibility at all of our open space areas. So this was just an analysis that was done, which I thought was kind of interesting, that compared Yarmouth to the same same population communities throughout the United States, and we fared very, very well. I was happy to see that we actually kind of exceeded everything except for full-time park and rec employees, but we're darn close. So I think we're doing really good with regard to our recreation and park lands. Taking all of that information and all that public input, we came up with 4 different community goals. The first one is to, actually the first 3 are related to things I think you guys are highly interested in. The first one is maintaining and managing open space and conservation properties, expanding the amount of open space and conservation land. And goal number 3 is protecting and improving our environmental resources, which includes our water quality and open space. And the number 4 is actually more related to year-round active recreational opportunities, increasing the awareness of all the great opportunities that we do have, and then making sure that people can fully access our town-owned lands and facilities. So we came up with these different goals, and then we tried to identify objectives of ways that we might be able to meet the goals, and then actual very specific action items to meet the goals and objectives. In the report, you'll find that there's actually a lovely table in section 9 that outlines all of these action items, and then also the departments that are responsible for them, the different potential funding sources that might be available to fund them if they're not already funded, or the sources that have funded it, and then the general timeline throughout the 7 years of the plan and when we might be able to get to those things. So there's more detailed information in the plan itself. But with goal number 1, we're talking about maintaining and managing the open space and conservation properties. The first objective is trying to find ways to fund maintenance. And the first action item is related to, well, we've got a lot of great civic organizations and associations, AmeriCorps, the Scouts, they've all helped us in the past. So seeing if we can't get volunteers for very specific, simple maintenance projects in our open space lands. The second objective there is to develop an invasive species management plan. The first action item there is to pursue grants for invasive removal on town lands and properties, and Brittany's been very successful at doing that with two different grants for $40,000 in order to do that on 7 town-owned properties. Developing an education program to reduce unintentional introduction of invasives. I think a lot of homeowners, as we have seen, don't necessarily know all the rules, and they might be inadvertently introducing invasives or planting non-native species that are kind of overtaking our native species. The third item there is to investigate and monitor known invasive species areas and see if we can't train the volunteers or neighbors to monitor that. We always have staffing issues, so maybe if it's something simple, we can get our neighbors to help us out in monitoring that. The third objective under this goal is to continue our ongoing land management activities, and that action item relates to prescribed burns and mechanical vegetation removal. It's mostly done, I believe, in the water department land, kind of north of Buck Island, and it really helps to improve wildlife habitat and also native plant communities. The fourth item there is to continue to enforce appropriate and legal use of conservation areas. The first objective is sometimes you guys see the illegal dumping and encroachment, so we want to make sure that we are investigating and addressing those issues. The second item is to install signage, especially denoting things like hunting season when certain areas are being used for multiple uses, just to make sure that people are aware of that. The third item is to install trail blaze markers to keep people on maintained trails. We don't want people going off the trails into sensitive areas and they might be causing some damage. And the fourth item there is to evaluate town land open for hunting to see if any changes might be needed. The last time that was looked at was down in 2013. In some land that's open for hunting, we're going to have our wastewater treatment facility on. We're also going to have our Cape Cod Rail Trail going through, so it might be a good idea to just take another look at that to see if that continues to be appropriate. Goal number 2 is to expand the amount of open space and conservation land. The first objective and only objective for Goal 2 is to identify and preserve land for natural resources, drinking water protection, passive recreation, and quality of life and aesthetics. So the first action item there is periodically lands get tax delinquent and tax title lands, taking a look at those annually to see if maybe they have some benefits and we might want to pursue purchasing those for conservation or recreation. The second item is to actually be a little bit more proactive and develop a list of properties that we would like to purchase or are interested in that might contain or protect things like critical habitat, rare and endangered species, wetlands, areas for salt marsh migration, and through the vulnerability assessment process that we just went through, Brittany has a nice list of potential salt marsh migration lands that we might want to purchase over, I think, the next maybe 70 to 100 years. So that's been done. Making sure that we're maintaining wildlife corridors, and if there's any large chunks of undeveloped land or large private recreation area, like perhaps a private golf course, we might be interested in purchasing, if we want to add to an existing conservation land, and of course, if it's something that would help protect our drinking water. The third item there is to investigate acquiring a 10.5-acre property off White Rock Road, which is owned by NSTAR. That's a property that's just next to the historical trails on White Rock Road, and also next to some other forested areas, so it would be nice to be able to not have that be developed in any way by NSTAR, and looking at maybe purchasing that and seeing if we can't put them someplace else. The fourth item there is obviously when we're looking for acquiring land, we can do it through either donations, maybe someone's a deeded gift right in a will, or a conservation restriction, or an outright purchase. Goal number 3 of protecting and improving our environmental resources, water quality, and open space. The first objective is to promote stormwater treatment. We all know that stormwater runoff untreated can cause some contamination issues, so continuing to fund those stormwater management projects on town roads and lands, and then pursuing grant funding for that. The second objective there is to explore ways to improve water quality and reduce nitrogen and nutrient loading, which we all know is a significant issue. So the first objective there is continuing the implementation of our municipal wastewater program, which we are very successfully moving along our phase 1 along Route 28 and South Shore Drive. The second is making sure that there's a fertilizer education program. People understand when to put on fertilizer, how much to put on fertilizer, because that's a very significant source of nitrogen. The third objective there is action item is to assist the Cape Cod Commission in their freshwater initiative, and they're looking at developing a bunch of different actions to protect and restore Cape's freshwater resources. One of them is they're going to be developing a freshwater quality testing portal on their website, so that there's testing results back from, I think, 2000, so there'll be an easy access to that. And then they're also going to be doing some additional testing over the next 2 or 3 years. In Yarmouth, they're going to do Dennis Pond, Sandy Pond, and James Pond. The fourth item there is to complete the Long Pond study. That's really to assess the water quality and health of that particular pond and how it's being impacted by different nutrients. It's also significantly impacted by the herring run there and the water level, so taking a look at how all of that is impacted and works together. Continuing with goal number 3 is the objective of promote tidal restoration projects to improve tidal flushing and foster a healthy ecosystem. The first one there Rick is a little familiar with this project in conjunction with the Friends of Bass River to complete that Upper Bass River Tidal Restoration Project, and that's replacing the box culvert on North Dennis Road and I think the collapsed culvert on Weir Road with bridges to improve the tidal flushing up gradient. The second one is also advancing the Run Pond Tidal Restoration Project. This is something that's been going on for quite some time, but Run Pond on South Shore used to go all the way to the Sound, and then when they put in the sidewalk, they put in the parking lot, they basically put it in through a culvert, and it's really restricted it. So there's been some plans and some ideas of widening those culverts and putting in a tile gate in order to restore the health of Run Pond. They've tried with aeration and other things over the years, but it hasn't quite done everything that we need it to do. The fourth objective is to pursue wetland restoration projects. Again, the first objective is working with Friends of Bass River for the great restoration project they're working on with the retired cranberry bogs to turn that into natural wetlands, which is on Hamlin's Brook and the upper Bass River. And the second item is like taking a look at other future restoration projects that we might want to start thinking about and seeking grant funding for some investigation to restore those wetlands. The next objective is to develop educational tools on best management practices, with the action item being Coastal Zone Management has done a great job of developing these fact sheets that really can help homeowners understand things about that they can do to prevent stormwater pollution and erosion. The next objective there is to further protection of the wetland resources through identification and regulation. Again, this is something you guys are very familiar with. Brittany and Catherine have gone out, and I think you've documented 6 vernal pools so far and gotten them certified through the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program, so they're going to be continuing to do that every spring. And the next item, obviously, you guys know about, is the updating the Yarmouth Wetland Bylaw and regulations to add the protections for those vernal pools, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and then, of course, those coastal resiliency zones to improve resiliency to climate change. Hopefully, we're getting near the end of goal number 3. Pursuing dredging projects. The first action item there is to complete the 10-year permit for dredging of Lewis Bay, Parkers River, and Bass River, and then begin the dredging. We had the meeting with the planning board last night, and Bill Benetti was indicating that he's hoping to have that 10-year permit in September, and hopefully maybe starting to do some of that dredging this fall. So that's the project that's been taking a long time, but we've actually seen some nice movement on that as well. The last item there is address the impacts of climate change. So the action item there is to complete this low-lying road study in collaboration with the Cape Cod Commission and Woods Hole. And I think we're looking at Run Pond Road and also an undersized culvert on Thatcher Shore Road. The second item is completing an infrastructure vulnerability assessment on municipal assets and developing a list of highest priorities. This has actually been just very recently completed. The good news is that none of our important municipal amenities like fire and police and town hall are in imminent danger of sea level rise or coastal storm impacts, but we do have a lot of water-dependent things that are, such as like Packet Landing and Wilbur Park and that type of thing. The last action item there is utilizing the updated Mass Coastal Flood Risk Model mapping to look at that sea level rise and the climate change and storm surges when you're looking at your future wetland bylaws and regulations. Oh, we're not quite done. We're actually doing a lot of stuff. The next objective there is just really concentrating development in suitable areas and what can we do. So really doing housing that can be already done in developed areas such as top-of-shop housing, looking at amending our land clearing and alteration permits so that we don't have people going in the residential properties and clearing their lots, which is encouraging invasives and illegal dumping, and then taking a look at our cluster development zoning and consider changes to promote uses of this style. I think you're going to have later on your agenda probably the last site in town that's eligible for our cluster development because you need to have a really large piece of land. So maybe looking at doing it on slightly smaller pieces of property to have the development cluster so we can retain some additional open space. And moving on to goal number 4, which really has to do with all of our great recreation. The first objective there is adding to and expanding our recreation opportunities by completing the projects that we already have online. And I think you guys are probably very familiar with a lot of these. The first one is completing the design and construction of the 3rd phase of the Cape Cod Rail Trail. We have it done basically to Peter Homer Park, but we're going to be rebuilding the existing bike path through Bayberry and then extending it over to Barnstable with a nice bridge over Willow Street and the railroad tracks, and then also supplemental parking just north of the roundabout on Higgins Kroll Road. We also have a shared use pathway on Higgins Kroll Road, which is the next item. And we're looking to complete the second and third phase. You might have seen already, there's a big section that's out there. That was the easiest section to do with the Mass Trails grant that we had, because it was on town-owned property, in front of town-owned property. So the second phase is almost 95%. The third phase is going to take a little longer. I don't think it'll be done until December of next year, because there's some utility poles that need to be relocated. It's a little bit more complicated areas. Complete the construction accessible playground and splash pad at Sandy Pond. Since we started this, it has been completed, including, I just found out yesterday, the restroom improvements. So those have been done. So kids are out there, they were playing all summer, and I hear it was an extremely great
Popular,
success.
Very popular.
The fourth one you're intimately familiar with, as am I, which is the completion of the permitting and construction of the Riverwalk Park, Boardwalk, and Event Space at the former drive-in site. We're getting very near completion of a very long permitting process and hoping to go out to bid in October or November with opening bids and starting construction probably in January if everything goes well. We want to get in on the time of year restriction and get started on that boardwalk. The next item here is completing the construction of the West Yarmouth Park restoration. I think a lot of you may know that we have Chasebrook Park here, Mill Creek Park here, and in the middle was the former Yankee Village that was taken down, and we repurchased that land, and now we're going to turn it into a 5-acre waterfront park and make improvements to the other parks as well. We want to complete our improvements on our historic structures. The Taylor Bray Farm on the right, they did a great job of moving it, rebuilding the foundation, and the second phase is really restoring that envelope with the siding, the roofing, and the windows, and also doing some interior work. The Baxter Grist Mill there on the left, they did a great job, phase one of the dam improvements, and also widening and expanding the fish ladder. But now we need to start taking a look at the actual structure itself, which is in need of some assistance. Other projects that we have moving on or already funded is a complete recreation capital assessment and improvement plan. We got $120,000 at the 2022 fall town meeting to take a look at that. That's going to be a much more in-depth, comprehensive plan so that we can identify capital improvements over time for our recreational facilities. The next item is we also got $225,000 at the 2022 special town meeting for Mattakese Middle School reuse analysis, and then also seeing if we can't consider recreational opportunities and programming, and there even the possibility of maybe a community center on that very, very large piece of property. Number 9 is related to sidewalks, bike paths, and shared use pathways, and making sure that we add them into road projects and Mass DOT projects. We've had a lot of people during the public commenting saying that you can't quite get there from here, or you can't get there safely. Mass DOT is working on 2 projects in Yarmouth, one on the east end doing the Bass River and the Four Corners, and they do have a shared use pathway on the south side as part of that project, and then also the corridor improvement project from the Barnstable Town Line to Parker's River, and that also has a 10-foot wide shared use pathway on the south side. So I think that'll make it much easier, at least for segments of Route 28 to get around. Because everyone was so interested in sidewalks and bike lanes, we wanted to include evaluating being part of the Complete Streets program, which is really looking at multimodal. How can we get around town without using a car? And consider establishing a bike ped committee in order to do that. The Complete Streets program, you have to come up with a master plan, but there's also some grant money that comes along with it. So it's always a good idea to be able to be eligible for those. And then the last item there is to investigate the needs and ways of creating additional year-round indoor recreation facility programs using some type of public-private partnership. We're doing some of that now where we have like adult water aerobics at one of the hotels, and they also have children's swimming lessons during the wintertime at a hotel pool. So we're trying to mesh those resources with our resources to provide more programming. We're looking to expand use of our existing facilities. So the first item there is let more people know about them. One of the things we did find out is that a lot of people didn't know all the great things that we have and where to get them and where to get the information. So really getting the word out about that. Evaluate increasing hours of restroom operation and seasonality. Lots of times the restrooms closed well before people wanted to be leaving the beaches or the parks. And also there, because we have such great weather, maybe we can be extending it, opening them up earlier or extending it later into the fall. We do have some accessibility issues at our restrooms that we need to be taking care of as we make improvements to our facilities. And then number 4 and number 5 is really taking a look at our ways to water and having a comprehensive inventory of those locations and what parking's available, and then also doing a needs assessment to identify what upgrades need to be done at those particular locations. I believe Bill Benetti is applying for a CPA grant in order to do these 2 studies, so that's something that is moving forward. Objective 4C is to maintain and upgrade existing facilities. I think once we have that recreation and capital assessment, we probably need to take another look at the master plans that were done for Flax, Sandy, and Peter Homer and see if that's still applicable or whether we want to do something a little bit different there. Pickleball, obviously, is always popular, and looking at prioritizing the addition of pickleball courts at Sandy Pond, and also evaluating the year-round use of pickleball courts at Flax Pond. Right now, they're closed in the winter, and because we do have such mild winters, they might be able to use that year-round. Number 3 is once we've updated the master plans, continue with those phased improvements at those 3 main parks, and also looking at improving signage for trails and wayfinding. Sometimes we get in there, and we're not sure where we are and how to get out. And number 5 is just looking at different ways to improving handicap water accessibility, including upgrades to our Moby mats and our Moby chairs. I think we got 12 new Moby chairs that are located at a couple of our facilities, but also you can go to the recreation, fill out a form, and take one out for the day and use that. And the last one is there to maintain and upgrade, this isn't the last one, but maintain and upgrade existing facilities. Again, a lot of our accessibility issues, making sure that we have playground equipment and surfaces, also improving parking and connectivity so you can park, but let's make sure you can get to all the great things that we want people to get to. We also took a look at not having quite enough accessible picnic tables at different locations and other site furnishings such as benches that had arms that would help you get up once you've gotten down, and then consider incorporating, historic and educational signage into existing facilities. It's always great to learn a little something while you're out getting a little exercise. And then maintain and enhance Yarmouth recreation shellfish. So we really want to continue and increase our seed stock for shellfish replenishment, and then explore the needs for and possible locations for additional town shellfish upwellers. I believe we have 3 upwellers in town now. Expand programming activities for all ages. So really working together with all of our different departments to have multi-generational programming. I think we do a pretty good job at that already. There's a lot of interaction, which is great to see, and just continuing along with that. And then continuing coordinating right now with the schools and the recreation. Have really been coordinating with having indoor pickleball and open gym basketball, and having that coordination going on there. Once we have the Riverwalk Park done, looking at soliciting those periodic special events that can happen at that site now that there'll be different amenities and electricity and Wi-Fi and parking. And then the last one, there's expand recreational programming throughout the spring, summer, and winter, utilizing the schools and playing fields. I was really impressed with the number of recreational programs that we have already, and then the number that they're actually looking at expanding. It was quite impressive. So what are the next steps? We're looking for an approval letter from the Conservation Commission on the Open Space and Rec Plan. The public comments are out and available for review through September 20th, and you're welcome to send the comments to me, Kathy Williams, at kwilliams@yarmouth.ma.us. We are waiting for the Division of Conservation Services. We submitted their draft. We're waiting for their comments. We're anticipating those soon. And then once we get all of that information, we will go and back to the Open Space and Rec Plan Ad Hoc Committee to review all those comments to see if we want to make any amendments in the final plan. And then we would go to the Board of Selectmen for their final approvals. I say November, it might end up being December because of town meeting and the holidays, but that's where we are.
Well done, Kathy.
Oh, I did pretty good.
And I have to say, she said we did the yeoman's work. I think you really did the yeoman's work on a lot of this stuff.
It's fun. It was not. It was good to learn. I went to every single facility, so I've been to vast majority, but not to every one.
Me too. I didn't know about a lot of those
Yeah,
places.
it was great. And there's little cards here if anyone wants to be able to look on the website. Has the link right there for the report.
You
Thank
did a
you,
wonderful
Kathy.
job, Kathy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank
Any
you.
questions from the board?
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah.
All right. First of all, you do such a wonderful job, so that's without saying. But anyway, I wondered, when you mentioned the environmental inventory, or maybe you don't know this, but if you could find out if the bog on White Rock Road that is kind of abandoned there, I think it's town property.
I think it is, yes.
Yeah, it's really going to pot, and I wondered if there's any plans for that. Because that's a potential recreational area as well, at least to walk around the bog. I know there's things happening with the Friends of Bass River in terms of revitalization of big bog areas. I wondered if maybe something could be done along that same line in that area. The other thing I always wonder about is there's a conservation area that seems to miss everybody. I think it's a different category. The Carolyn Thatcher Pereira,
Yeah.
you know, what the status of that as a beautiful area. And I personally would like to see it protected as other conservation areas are as well. And that's it, but, you know, you have quite a list there.
Luckily, we're doing the vast majority of it already. So having them in the open space and rec plan does help with kind of increasing the likelihood of getting different types of grants. Because it's like, is it in the open space and rec plan? Yes, it is, and you can check that, and it makes your grant grade higher, so.
David?
You mentioned a couple of culverts, and I'm just curious whether they looked at the Shore Road, West Yarmouth culvert, which is flooded in good high tides. The whole road is flooded.
Where is that?
Near Englewood Beach,
Yes, okay.
okay?
Yeah.
I mean, there are many days I go walking, I can't walk there,
Yeah.
but that's not why you
That's a
should do it.
tough nut
but-
to crack.
And the second thing is more a comment, and you and I emailed back and forth with you about it. In the report, it talked about saving trees along historical areas, and certainly Route 6A is a historical area. And I just want to comment that I think it's unfortunate that we don't have control of what happens on 6A to trees, because recently the state came and cut down a tree in front of one of the Three Sisters houses, an old tree that was not, from what I could tell and other people could tell, was sick and needed to be cut down. And I don't know how we prevent that from happening, because the trees in 6A are old, historical, and beautiful. And if we have the state being able to come and do what they want without any hearing, as it says in our town bylaws and regulations, supposed to be a hearing, it bothered me a lot that this happened. So I just want to make that comment.
Unfortunately, the public shade tree law does exempt state highways, and they are in sole control of removing trees.
So I wonder whether, you know, within laws, whether there's amendments that our state reps and maybe our state senator can look at to amend the law so that it is protected by the town, which certainly has more knowledge about the street and the roads than the state does.
Certainly would be nice to maybe have our local tree warden at least concur that there's something wrong with the tree and it
At
needs.
least they go through him or her first. But, yeah, it really bothered me. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Kathy, our wetlands restoration project includes a fair amount of handicap accessible walking trails, footbridges, and viewing platforms, so that's a big part of it. And also, Friends of Bass River is in the process of completing a comprehensive inundation mapping of the entire river. And if that's something you would find helpful, we can certainly share it with you.
I would find that personally very fascinating, but yes,
Thank you.
So would I.
You can have it.
thank you.
Anybody else? Brittany?
Thanks for all your hard work and the ad hoc committee. We've been working on this since January, so
He's been on the team the
been
whole
a-
way.
yeah, it's been a long journey, and we're grateful for everyone's input and help.
Okay, so I gather from the board that you approve of this plan, and that you'd like me to sign the letter that says we approve of the plan?
Yes, please.
I make a motion, we send them a letter of
Rick's moved it.
recommendation.
I'll second it.
All right, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then just signed it.
Carried unanimously and signed.
You were very efficient. Thank you very much.
All right,
So are
thank
you.
Kathy?
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, sure. You could take it. I don't need it, I guess.
All right, there you go.
Thank you so much.
All right, next order of business is a request for determination of applicability, Hannah Raddatz BSC Group Incorporated for Eric Artelli, RT Architects Incorporated, 10 and 12 Braddock Street, proposed raise and replace of a single-family dwelling shed septic upgrade within land subject to coastal storm flowage. Hannah?
Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Hannah Raddatz, wetland scientist with BSC, and I'm representing ERT Architects and Daniel and Karen Madden for the property at 10 and 12 Braddock Street. This is a pretty simple project. 10 and 12 Braddock Street are two adjoining properties that are currently cleared. Only one of them has a dwelling on it. This is to raise and replace that existing dwelling with a dwelling that spans the two lots and an upgrade of the septic system. That septic system will be a 1,500 gallon septic tank with a 41 by 11 foot leaching field. There will be a series of 7 flood vents and 8 roof drains associated with the proposed dwelling to capture stormwater. A 10-foot by 14-foot shed is proposed in the backyard. And the existing septic system will be pumped, filled with sand, crushed, abandoned as the typical procedure goes. The only resource area on this site is FEMA Flood Zone AE, or land subject to coastal storm flowage. The site will have silt socks staked around the edge of the site as the limit of work to control sediment on the site. The disturbed areas will be returned to their original grade. There will be no change in grade. They will be loamed and seeded as soon as the work is complete, and the silt sock that is staked in place will remain in place and functional until the site reaches appropriate levels of revegetation. No site clearing will be needed, as I mentioned. This is a pretty clear site. It's mostly lawn and the existing dwelling. That concludes the important parts of this project. I know you guys are still going through the packets, but if you have any questions for me, I will take them now.
Thank you. Questions for the board? Brittany?
Yeah, is the shed going to be on sonotubes or a foundation?
I'm not sure.
Just because it's in the floodplain, we need it to be securely anchored to one of those.
I imagine they would be. Kieran, who designed this plan, is most likely aware of that, but I can double check.
Okay, yeah, we
I
can
don't
just,
believe it's called out on the plan.
it's not called out. I can just add it as a condition in the RDA that it should be anchored to one of those.
Understood.
And will the patio and driveway remain, or are there any changes for those? I know the house is kind of going into the existing patio area, so I imagine it's being ripped up.
I also imagine it's being ripped up. It's not shown as replaced in an orientation that makes sense with the dwelling now, so it's my understanding that it will be ripped up.
Okay. As long as it's replaced with permeable pavers as well as the driveway remaining pervious as shell or gravel and not being paved. Otherwise, they would need to come for an NOI if they wanted to pave the driveway.
Understood.
That's all my questions.
All right, anybody in the audience have any questions on this one for 10 and 12 Braddock Street? Anybody on Zoom have a question? Raise your hand digitally. Unless there's any further questions from the board, would somebody like to make a motion for a -2? Is
So moved.
there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Just for your information, Mr. Chairman, it does call out crushed shell driveway.
Yeah, that's the existing, so it looks like the septic is kind of go near it, so I didn't know if it was going to be changed, but that's fine.
Kieran's out of the month in Ireland, out of the country for the month in Ireland, but we will
Let him
double
back.
check on that with the clients to make sure that that's spick and span, but I'm assuming that things that can stay will stay, but we'll
Okay.
be in touch with conservation if there's a change to that.
Thanks, nice meeting you. I have seen your name on a lot of things and never seen you before, so.
It was good to meet you as well. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay,
Take
thank
care.
you, Hannah. Next order of business, continued notice of intent is SE 83-2397 Roy Okarowski, WRS Engineering for Paul and Nancy Cruz, 52 Prince Road, proposed dock and boat lift and land under ocean, coastal beach, salt marsh, land containing shellfish, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. The project proponent has requested a continuance to September 21st, 2023. Before I ask for that, is there a reason why they're having issues with this? You know,
They did not provide me any other information other than the request for continuance.
Well, we
All
don't
right.
have any
I'm-
plans for it either, that's the other thing.
So this is 52 Prince. I know they have another one for 33 Prince, but this is for the project that was denied in Waterways, so they're reconfiguring the dock location entirely.
This is the one at the corner.
Yeah, on the corner at Mill Creek.
all right, well.
They should have requested more time, but they did not
Right.
originally.
And there's still a boat there on the,
No, the boat has been removed.
okay, I kayaked there a week and a half ago, and it was still there.
They moved it where it's floating now. It's not attached to the bulkhead. They worked that out with DNR.
I'll look closer next time I kayak there.
If that is untrue, please let me know.
All right, is there a motion to continue to September 21st, 2023?
206.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Next order of business is another continued notice of intent for S 83-2402, Bob Perry, Cape Cod Engineering for Henry and Nadine Gill, 206 South Street, proposed raise and replace of a single-family dwelling with new deck, patio, and pool and land subject to coastal storm flowage and in the buffer zones to coastal bank and dune.
Put this on the screen for us.
Site plan? Just let me know where you want. Cards. Thank you.
It's a landscape plan.
What you have is a landscape. That's the landscape. Should be the-
Landscaping and house. This is house, this is landscape. Landscape is probably the one to look at.
All set to go? Got your plans out. So I'm Bob Perry, Cape Cod Engineering. Phil Cheney is here with us. He's contributing to this project in a very significant way, and the applicants, Nadine and Bain Gill, are sitting behind us. The property address, 206 South Street. We've been working with them for quite some time planning this, and so the notice of intent has been filed. And what we have is a raise and replace of the main home with an effort to keep another structure that's there. The land is very flat, if you've been here. We are in the AE flood zone in the project area. We're on the shore of the Bass River, so as you go toward the water, when you get closer to the revetment, the flood zone transitions to VE, and then we're over the revetment. To the south, we have a nice sort of a coastal barrier area that's got a osprey pole, and there's a little bit of coastal dune over there, and that has been delineated. So we have a 50-foot buffer that's from a coastal bank you just saw in the photograph, which is the top of the revetment, and as that landform goes to the south, it transitions to a coastal dune boundary. The rest of the project is in the buffer zone to those two resource areas and then within the floodplain entirely. Lead off with some numbers. We had a comparison for, if you look carefully, you can see we've pulled the main building, the proposed building, back from the 50-foot buffer zone, where we're about 23 feet back directly from the 50-foot. But because of the dune boundary, we've got a porch that's gonna, it'll be out of the 50, but it's about 6 feet, maybe 56 feet. That's a difficult dune because it is really dredge material and doesn't have any real form to it, but we're acknowledging there's a dune there. So the balance of development is where in the buffer zone, which would be to the coastal bank and to the dune, we did have 2,556 square feet. We're going down to 2,174, which is a reduction of 382 square feet within the buffer. And despite that, after discussing with the applicants, the prospect of some planting and some general mitigation, which is commonly accepted, commonly with many, many redevelopment projects. Phil Cheney's plan shows that out where it does the most good over toward the area, which is today a lawn, albeit a Cape Cod lawn, all the way out to the revetment cap. There's a nice cedar tree out there that's going to stay. And as we go to the south, it's basically a very, nice wild coastal plant community. I don't really think I've noted any real invasives in there, save for a little bit of bittersweet. So the project is a home that really won't change the character of the land as we go back. When we're out of the buffer zone, we're into the flood zone, the driveway grades are going to remain very much like they are. And on the street side of the building, we are elevating the grade to come up and meet the building, which also would be necessary to mound the septic system. So that all goes together, but because of the AE flood zone location, there is no grade change on the river side of the building. That grade will remain the same also. When we go to the south, we do have that's where the grade change begins, and as you wrap clockwise around the building, you have that grade change coming up to match the decks and the patio that is on the, out of the buffer zone, and it is just within the floodplain. So there's within the floodplain, we've got the septic system, which is going to meet Title V. And we also have a patio and a swimming pool that will be in the AE zone. But otherwise, there was an effort to get the house back as far as we could without overcoming that other building, which is kind of a very old, nice, traditional, small garage building that we're not changing at the grades in the vicinity of that building at all. That's that building I'm speaking of. There's some roof drainage that's been proposed to effectively be most useful when the project is new, before the ground stabilizes. Mr. Cheney and I worked closely together to preserve the forest that exists to the south. There's a lot of interest in maintaining a lot of that. Just that land is to be left alone. And so it's quite a lot of development that's landward of the existing home and in the area of the existing driveway. So the land remaining out by the river, which is, as it is now, is basically going to remain much, in fact, completely like it is, except for the mitigation that Phil has proposed. So without too much more detail, I would just say that the house is elevated to meet the flood code. It's just a little better than that because it's not, I don't think it's responsible to be minimizing elevations. So we're maybe a half a foot higher than we have to be. Yeah, we're about half a foot. So that's the summary of this, and I know Phil may have some things to tell you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Questions from the board?
The amount of clearing that you're gonna have for the swimming pool and the grading is how much?
I don't have I can get you a quick estimate of that, but I do not have that number at my fingertips. Would you like me to take a shot at that plan? Because-
Just a reminder that the swimming pool itself is outside of the 100-foot.
Yeah, no, I know.
Well, I can.
Not the paving. Not the paving.
Right, yes, no, there's portions of the patio and in level lawn area, but then just,
Ellie, did you say for the pool and the septic?
Well, within the 100, how much is that? gonna
Within the
all be?
100, okay. 1 second here. We've got 30 by, roughly, I'm going to take a stab at that. 1,200 square feet. We just, yeah,
How much would I figure?
hold on. Well, it's an area,
And that
Wait.
mitigation is going along the seawall?
yes.
I'm going to up that estimate I just gave you, because I'm doing this on the fly, 2,500, and we did discuss, you know, we could, you know, we can shrink that work limit a little bit if we need to. We went in there and counted trees. I think, what did we have, 11 that are,
Something like that, yeah.
there's pines that might be at risk from falling down.
Yeah, the majority of the trees in that area that would be coming out are pitch pines, a few black locusts, a couple of decent oaks. The most are just fairly small pines and locusts. It's not a lot of overgrown ornamental shrubs. There's a gigantic English yew in there and privet and things like that.
There's some English ivy, yeah.
That's all I have right now.
Anybody else?
And a quick unmeasured guess, we've got over 50% of this structure within the 100-foot. And, you know, I know that we've, in the past, been able to get applicants to move things back, so we have either 0 within the 100-foot or a smaller percentage. And that's of interest to me. You know, that little garage is absolutely gorgeous. But it's, you know, it's certainly movable.
May I speak to that? Because if it's moved, it needs to comply with the flood code, and it isn't habitable, but it would also be a zoning complication. With regard to the footprint, we do have the building certainly remaining in the buffer zone, and I'm just looking at this, but it is in a buffer zone that is currently developed.
Oh, sure.
It is paved and lawn and house. And so it's a very small portion of that Porsche that's cutting into the edge of vegetation. You can see the edge of vegetation.
Yep.
And that area that's going to be altered is actually an area that would do well to be reworked with native plants rather than the English ivy and the collection that's currently in there. No, I understood, with a deep lot like this, we've talked about this at length with the applicants, and in a case of the setting and the possibility that this could have been divided, and that idea was rejected because the preference was to have a single-family home that's not centered, it's holding to the position that the old home was, so that we are able to leave this area alone. And the screening from the street, this is all just woods that'll remain much like it is today. So there was a lot of thought put into this, but pushing it way back collides with, some of the main purposes of the redevelopment itself, to be on the coast, to have a view. It is shifting back. This shift, there's a beautiful porch there, but it's a 23-foot shift landward from the house location, straight back.
Bob, would you describe the pavers around the pool as permeable, or is that a stretch?
With think of it this way, there will be a drain, any runoff from that pool will go into the sandy substrate that exists there today, and it's surface recharge, it's not fertilizer recharge, it would be like roof recharge, whether it's coming through the pavers or if it's collected in a drain. I don't think it's fair for me to say the pavers would be overly pervious.
My only comment would be if you would consider shrinking that new clearing area in the 50 to allow for access and circulation without clearing so much in the 50. But other than that, I think it's a good plan.
200 feet. Isn't the riverfront 200 feet, not 100?
Mariana's usually 100.
I think that could be done. We actually were looking at the vegetation there, that I think since 1920, the crop of invasives was in the regraded area, was to be pretty much eradicated by that regrading.
We now have 2 outdoor
And that
showers
the lines of regrading were so gentle
in the foot range.
by being outward, that we would have a very natural effect to the landform. Because of the grade changes, pretty much mandated, we can shrink it, but I'm just telling you the reason why it's what it is.
Yeah, understood. And that just comes from, I know there's no buffer there and you're establishing one, which is great. And it's close to the area that's being cleared. So I think usually we'd ask for it to be a bit more than the area that's being cleared if it's made up of mature trees, but I can't exactly remember what's there. You said a couple oaks, mostly pines that aren't in great shape. So I think it's a permittable project. To be perfect, I would ask for a few more plantings or a little bit less clearing, but that is very
Yep.
nitpicky.
It wouldn't be a big deal to, we're like looking at about a 10-foot wide buffer strip now. We could easily bump that up to 15. And then we're, to me, that's like overkill, really. If it's a really good, healthy buffer strip, that's really not a problem. And that would just preserve some. I'm trying to, with these elevated houses, it's nice to have some lawn that you don't have to go down a huge flight of steps to get to. So that's really the purpose of that clearing and leveling on the side of the house, is we can't reach that lawn easily on the water side. And so, yes, if we were to just bump that up to, say, 15 feet, if that would satisfy that would really, I think, work the design well.
I'd let the commission decide that.
Can you point out the area again we're talking about, south area?
So here's just the portion where this is the edge of vegetation. So they'd just be clearing this triangle bit here within the 50, and it's forested there. They said with pines, a couple oaks. Some of the pines are in good shape, some non-native yews, but they are already providing a 10-foot buffer strip for that clearing.
That closest portion is primarily just scruffy lawn area right now. The really trees start happening back sort of beyond the 50 for the most part.
The black locust, I think, are up front.
We could also tighten up that work limit along that side. That's less of a concern than it is directly to the south.
Okay.
If that
Yeah,
makes
this is
sense.
where you want the lawn, right?
Right. That's where we're really trying to get it
Yeah,
there.
and this is just a gentle grade.
Right, and I left that there mostly just because it's existing lawn now for the most part, just scruffy lawn in that zone, that passageway. But we can shrink that in if you want.
Okay, I guess the edge of clearing line is just confusing me then.
Yeah, okay.
That's not what I wanted.
Can you do a revised plan that shows that then?
Sure, I can do that.
And are you still looking for that extra 5 feet or no?
You have a question?
Yes? Everybody?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Still looking for the 5-foot additional buffer planting as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right,
So if I'm understanding correctly, just to clarify, we're just looking at tightening up that strip there along the south side a little bit and then adding 5 feet to the buffer strip.
Right.
Okay, no problem.
I was just gonna, Rick brought up the notion of trying to move the house back farther. And I know that that's probably a really big problem and a lot of effort went into this. However, on this plan, it looks like you have room. Is that my misunderstanding that you have room? Is it a great big driveway,
We're really trying to preserve,
big patio?
sure, we're really trying to preserve access to that existing garage. It is functional. And
Well,
so if we
I don't know,
creep much
How many feet are you
further,
away from the existing garage if you went right now in this plan? How far away are you from the existing garage and?
I mean, there's maybe another 3 feet available that you could possibly squeak in, just
Why do you
starts
say
making it
that,
very
though? I
tight.
mean, I don't understand why you say there's only 3 feet available when it looks like there's a heck of a lot more. And it could be just my misunderstanding, yeah.
It's about 35 feet.
To the garage in here. So if this just creeps up forward, we need a fair amount of space just to get stairs in here, so forth, and make the turn and get in there. So, yeah, this may be a couple, 3 feet we could squeeze in there. It just starts making it feel really cramped. Just with the change in grade.
Yeah.
Aesthetics is one thing as well. It's like now you got this piled up next to that fairly small garage. We're trying to keep some space.
Yeah, it's a
there.
great-looking garage, I have to say, but the
We're
thing is,
trying to preserve convenient access to that so you can get in and out.
yeah, it's just that I guess the plan is a little deceiving in terms of that room that you're talking about. It looks like you have a heck of a lot more room to move it back, but you probably know better than me.
Yeah, I would disagree. I mean, I would say, yeah, we could probably squeak out another 2 or 3 feet or something, but
Yeah, see-
it just didn't seem to be worthwhile.
Again, yeah, I'm sure you're right, but I don't see why it would only be 2 or 3 feet, but that's just my observation.
Anybody else?
Salt water or fresh water?
Typically would be a saltwater, yes.
Brittany, anything else?
Nothing else?
Anybody in the audience? Anybody on Zoom? Whoop.
The garage is like the favorite part. We're gonna try to do the house, just like, I like that, the whole feel
That'd be
it
nice,
sets.
yeah.
And it just gives you that whole nice old feel. I just love that.
I'm sure it will be beautiful.
Move the whole.
It's really
south a little bit.
modernization, but to keep with the character of what's there, but with, some retreat.
Anybody on Zoom who wants to discuss this project, raise your hand digitally.
Can I add something else in here, that the covered deck and the other decks do not get enclosed at any point?
You can add that to the special conditions.
They are only within the 100, but we can add that.
Well, it's within the 100 that we're gonna, if they enclose it, it's gonna be another part of a building within the 100.
That's true.
Any further discussion? Somebody like to make a motion to approve the project with special conditions pending receipt of a revised plan showing the change in the lawn on the southeast side and the increase in buffer strip by 5 foot.
Are we asking them to send it back?
What's that?
What Paul's request was, with moving it?
No, I don't think that would be required.
Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Thank you. I can get you those plans next week or so.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, what's the message?
Next order of business, another continued stormwater management permit application for SW 2023-002 JM O'Reilly and Associates for Christian Davenport, the Davenport Companies Incorporated, Lot 2A, Route 6A, proposed development of a 14-lot cluster subdivision in Yarmouthport. Are we in agreement between the plan and the reviewer, peer reviewer?
I had wanted to do a short, yes, I mean, the peer review, after a lengthy process. There were 2 outstanding comments. We received revised plans this morning, and there will be special conditions, but it seems like the peer reviewer is happy with what we have going on.
Who's this guy?
Good evening, Bob Reedy, engineer with JM O'Reilly and Associates. As mentioned, representing the Davenport companies.
Sorry, can you spell your last name?
Reedy, R-E-E-D-Y.
Thank you.
Again, representing the Davenport companies, our client and the owner of this property. This is a 14-lot residential cluster subdivision off of Route 6A. It's an approximately 15-acre lot. As mentioned, we've applied for the stormwater permit back in, I think, January, shortly after applying for and receiving the definitive subdivision approval for this land. That itself was also a very extensive process, and part of the reason it took us so long to kind of retrofit our stormwater management permit into what had already been approved by the planning board. We did have an extensive amount of comments initially from the peer reviewer. We've addressed all of those. We've whittled it down to the final 2 comments, which we've submitted revised plans for yesterday and today. So I'll just take you through a brief summary of the project, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. The the stormwater systems consists of, and this is the
You can let me know what you
watershed
want to
plan, but if
see.
you have the main site plan, the C4 one right there would be good.
C4.
Yeah, perfect. So it consists of two main stormwater systems. First, that serve the two roadways, Miracle Way and Faith Road, as well as some surrounding areas that grade down into the road. Those two main stormwater systems is a four-part treatment train. First, we have catch basins and manholes, a collection system within the roadway. For each of those two main systems, it then runs to a proprietary pre-treatment unit manufactured by Contech. It's called the CTS 2015 unit. There's a couple different sizes that we used based on the size of the watershed we were using for each one. But it's designed to provide pre-treatment for total solids, suspended solids removal. After stormwater moves through that pre-treatment unit, it then moves into one of the two large swales, one of which is right at the bottom of Faith Road, right there at the cul-de-sac, and the other up at the entrance of Miracle Way, a little bit smaller up there. That provides treatment after going through the pre-treatment unit. Those swales are rather large and are designed to only fill to a maximum of 18 inches in large storm events before we have overflow catch basins put in each of the swales. That would be able to then take it to the fourth part of our treatment train, which is the leaching facility. Again, for most smaller storm events, the stormwater would never even get to the leaching facility. It would simply be leached through the treatment components. For roof runoff, each of the buildings is addressed separately with its own leaching components, which consists of Cultec units after gutters and downspouts. And for the remainder of the developed areas, because it's a sloping lot, and we do have several driveways that pitch away from our main road areas, kind of preventing us from combining it into our main stormwater systems. We have 5 secondary stormwater systems, which consist of vegetated strips then running into dry water quality swales. Those are typically in the backyards of various properties. You can see one at the back of Lot 4 there. There's another one over at the west side of the property, to the west of Lot 13 and Lot 14, and a couple other smaller ones that are further up to the north there. The intent of those is to simply control driveway and backyard areas and prevent stormwater runoff from getting off-site. Our calculations demonstrate that we are meeting the water quality, recharge, and peak discharge requirements of the Stormwater Handbook, as well as the Yarmouth Stormwater Management Regulations. We are reducing site-wide peak discharge as well as peak discharge to each of the individual design points across the site, of which there are 5 after we complete our proposed conditions. So we are effectively demonstrating that we are reducing and improving the stormwater situation relative to existing conditions site-wide and also at each of the individual design points that flows off the site. Because again, it is a hilly site that has water pitching in many different directions. So we're not just analyzing whether we improve things on a site-wide basis, we're analyzing whether we improve things in every direction that stormwater would flow off the site. Again, I'll be happy to answer any questions the commission has on that. I just want to touch on a few other brief things, at least relative to the Conservation Commission, if not necessarily specifically the stormwater permit. I do want to note that this is a cluster residential subdivision, which is specifically designed to cluster the residential areas as much as possible and to maintain as much contiguous open space as possible. We have over 200,000 square feet of open space that's maintained as part of this residential subdivision. Nearly 40% of the entire area of the property. Much of the area that we can include as open space is also effectively drainage areas that will not be part of any individual properties. And finally, as a part of the definitive subdivision process, we put together a pretty extensive landscape planting plan as well. I do believe that was initially submitted. I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at that, but we'd be happy to share it with you. There's over 175 new native trees proposed on the site in order to replace some of the clearing that we're inevitably going to need to be doing for all the grading and road building that we're doing here. In addition to over nearly 1,000 native shrubs as well that will be planted. Many of these will be going in the drainage easement areas, as well as wet meadow mix that is appropriate for drainage swales as well. I'm sure that would be something that would be conservation approved as well, but we'd be happy to provide you with a mix for that. So we've certainly considered conservation issues here before we even actually got to the Conservation Commission. A lot of that was driven through the planning board. But I just wanted to mention those things, as I'm sure that that's stuff that the commission would be happy to hear. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding the project.
Questions from the board?
Will you be clear cutting to,
So as you can see where our limit of work is, I think one of the, the consequences, if you will, of doing a cluster subdevelopment is we are squeezing everything in as much as we can into that central area. So it's pretty limited in terms of mature trees we'll be able to keep there, and that was something that was acknowledged during the planning process. And that's why we're planting so many additional trees in order to attempt to replace that. But outside the limit of work, there's no further disturbance. All those open space areas are going to remain natural in perpetuity.
Anybody else?
I find it hard to believe that your claim that this stormwater project, the stormwater plan, will be an improvement over the undisturbed uplands, treed area. It's incredible to me that you can make that statement. I mean, just, how can that be?
This would be based on the regulations of your commission and the state handbook, which is for water quality, peak discharge, and recharge. So I'm sure you're well familiar with those
we are.
regulations.
But, the other statement was, it was expensive. Why would we care if it's expensive or not? That's irrelevant to our understanding of how this project will impact the wetlands regulations and stormwater regulations. But that's all I have.
Expense, I'm sorry?
You claim at one of your very opening statements was this is a very expensive project for you.
Expansive.
Expansive?
I think or extensive, I don't think I would have used expensive. It certainly hasn't cost us as an engineer.
What I thought you said, so I apologize. if
Put
I
an
misunderstood.
extensive amount of work over 9 months trying to meet
Fine.
the
Yeah, you're
requirements
right.
of your peer review.
I misunderstood you, so.
My only comment would be just to let the commission know that they are seeking one variance from our stormwater regulations. Not quite 100% of the runoff will be in pre-treatment, but most of it will be treated. So in our regulations, in the stormwater regulations, that is a requirement, and they would be asking for a variance of less than 3,000 square feet, if I remember correctly. I can pull that comment up because I'm not remembering exactly, but it's a pretty small amount for a variance, and I think that is a reasonable request.
And just to be clear, what we're requesting is that we're required a minimum of 25 feet of vegetated strip to be able to account that as part of a pre-treatment. So much of those areas that are within that square footage do have a vegetated strip. It's just less than 25 feet because the swale is too close to the driveway. Again, this is just a product of us clustering everything as close as possible together. The great majority of those areas do have effective pre-treatment because they are greater than 25 feet away from the swales, but there are small portions that, by necessity, are within 25 feet of the swale. We've calculated that all out within our TSS removal tables that are included in the stormwater management report, and including those areas that have no TSS removal counted because they don't meet the minimum 25%, we still are meeting the 90% and 60% treatment removal standards that are required.
Can I ask, I have a,
Paul?
yeah, I had the same kind of reaction to your comment about this project improving upon the stormwater, whatever it's called, drainage or whatever the case may be, than for the woodlands that are there now. Just a question, in the planning, and I don't know if this relates to the stormwater plan or not, is there any restriction in any of these houses regarding lawn size?
I would have to check into planning documents. I believe there was something written regarding that,
Okay.
which certainly will be bound by the limit of work, and we will be bound by the property lines, which obviously are much smaller than zoning regulations would allow. Typically, we'd be required to have a 40,000 square foot lot for all of these, and these are much smaller than that. So I think that was taken into consideration with the planning board in terms of the limited amount of space we really have for backyard space and driveways.
What is the size of the lots roughly?
They range in size. Some of the smaller ones are more like the lot 7 at the front is 12,000 square feet. So, almost 4 times the, 25% of the size of what would be the minimum allowed.
Yeah.
Some of the bigger ones at the back, there's a few that are a little over 20,000 square feet, but all of them are much smaller than 40,000.
And I'm sure that, and again, I apologize, I'm not sure if this directly relates to stormwater management or whatever. Fertilizer, was there anything considered as far as the use of fertilizer?
If you look at our operation and maintenance, we have extensive specific rules following all of the town's regulations regarding fertilizer. All of the regulations are in there exactly as required by the town as it relates to fertilizer, pesticide use, when fertilizers can be used, when they can't be used, the amount that can be used per square footage.
I see.
And we did submit that as part of our operation and maintenance manual.
And maybe one other thing. You have Miracle Way, okay? It looks like a pretty straight shot off of 6A. What's the grade? Is that sloped down? Like, does it go in a southerly direction?
So at the beginning of Miracle Way at 6A, it initially slopes down a little bit away from the road. So we have a little bit of a low point coming away from the road so that, we're not going to be adding any stormwater onto Route 6A. There's also going to be a berm along the road so that 6A isn't going to be coming onto our site, so we're keeping things separate there. And then there's a high point right about at where the word Miracle Way is there along the road, so water will pitch towards the front stormwater facility on the road until you get about to Miracle Way. And then that's a high point, and then we start pitching down towards a low point for Miracle Way that is right at the intersection of Faith Road and Miracle Way. And then the road starts pitching down at a steeper pitch to go down Faith Road to the cul-de-sac at the bottom there. So it's a little bit of a rolling road where it comes down, goes up, down, and then up again, which is good for stormwater purposes to keep the water moving. And then obviously, just working with the grades of the site, we have to go down at a, essentially maximum allowable pitch along Faith Road in order to get down there.
What I would call catch basins along the way that collect that water.
We have catch basins all along the way. The intent is that 100% of the road has been graded so that all of it will flow to catch basins. Significant amounts of the driveway areas also pitch onto the road. But again, because of some of the slopes we have on the property, we needed to have some secondary systems on site.
And thank you. Does each one of the houses have their own septic system?
Yes,
Yeah.
each has its own septic system.
Was there any, I thought there was a discussion of this commission a little while back, I'll say a little while back, where it wasn't, I think determined it wasn't within our purview, but a recommendation that there be some sort of a central septic system. Was that considered at all?
It was considered, the comments by the planning board at as you may be aware, this is actually a significant redesign from the initial layout that was presented to the planning board. There was significant opposition, particularly from abutters on Hockanum Road regarding the road access there. So obviously, the whole project shifted, essentially to address that issue first. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there, but.
The common kind of septic design, so that was changed.
One of the things that we considered when we did the complete redesign was how we could maximize the amount of septic systems that would be shifted out of the Bass River watershed and into the Barnstable Harbor / Chase Garden Creek watershed, because the Barnstable Harbor watershed is not impaired, whereas the Bass River watershed is impaired. The planning, at the time of our initial application, we had 7 septic systems in and 7 septic systems out. And as part of our redesign, we tried to shift more of them up into the northwestern part of the property, while also respecting the open space in the northwest corner there that we also had a difficult time getting to with the redesign of the road. And as a result, we were able to get 10 of the 14 septic systems out. If you look at Lot 2 on the eastern side of the property, you notice that's a very strange panhandle-shaped lot with the septic up in the corner there. That's specifically for the reason of getting the septic system out of Bass River watershed and into Chase Garden Creek, Barnstable Harbor watershed, which again is considered to be a non-impaired watershed by DEP.
Well, thank you.
So that was our best effort that we could achieve within the design parameters we were given in order to improve the septic situation as best we could. And the planning board was happy with our efforts to get the additional 3 septic systems out.
Thank you. And I know this isn't within our purview, but it's Miracle Way, and I'm sure this has been covered, but it's going to be a miracle if people don't have trouble getting out on 6A,
It certainly, access was probably the biggest issue when it related to development of this property. There was a lot of pushback as to whether there was another method of access. If you scroll down, you can see that there's an access way to Eileen Street. There was intense abutter pushback from that as well. And essentially, the applicants were pushed into a position where they just kind of had to ask the town, where do you want us to put the access road? Because we have to be able to access the property somehow. And this essentially was the best opportunity, which is we're over 400 feet away from both Ken Comsit and Outward Reach. which is kind of the sweet spot for maximizing our distance. We have good sight distance in both directions with minimal amount of clearing, so,
Yeah, that's a tough area.
yeah.
Is there going to be a bike lane or something included? Because that's an awful area.
You mean along Route 6A? There was discussion amongst the planning board as to whether they would ask us to put in sidewalks on our property and/or Route 6A. Due to the amount of space along the layout itself, they couldn't really commit to adding any sort of sidewalks along there, and it's very close to the layout. So they ended up deciding not to ask us to. They debated whether to ask us to put sidewalks within our layout and decided that they didn't think it was appropriate, and that would actually add a lot of additional impervious area that would potentially cause additional stormwater concerns.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much for your.
And if I may, I certainly didn't mean to, raise any hackles on the commission by suggesting that by developing a previously undeveloped lot, that we would be improving a natural scenario in any means. All I'm intending to point out is that by the amount of stormwater controls we're putting in place, we are reducing off-site runoff. An existing vacant lot doesn't have any underground stormwater controls that can hold large amounts of water underground during a large event. I'm not saying that, by any means, developing a natural lot into a proposed lot is a benefit for nature or stormwater controls as a whole, but there will be a lesser amount of overall runoff with all of the controls we've put in place. Especially considering that natural environments do have a certain amount of nitrogen runoff that's associated with them, and if we're treating that with our own methods, then that is an improvement from a perspective of stormwater control only. Certainly not speaking to any other conservation issues beyond that. Just want to clarify.
I have a question. Are these owner occupied?
My understanding from all of Davenport's plans thus far is that they tend to own and operate as long-term rentals, all 14 of the properties. So they would be responsible for maintenance of all the swales, stormwater components, basically everything in the operation and maintenance manual would be
They being Davenport. And
companies.
so if Davenport sells to somebody else, then that new person would have to follow the regulations instead of.
Correct.
What happens if someone else buys and decided, okay, we're going to sell these units? Who then is going to control?
They would have to provide us with who would be taking over the operation and maintenance.
Okay,
It's not up to the new person to decide, it's up to who's selling it, to tell us who's taking over.
okay.
Presumably, if they were, going to be selling the properties off separately, there would need to be a homeowners association created to deal with this, particularly because there's private roads in place that require maintenance and require
Okay, so it is a private
annual
road.
costs.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, these are single-family houses?
Single-family homes, yes, 4-bedroom.
All right, thanks.
Rentals.
Any other questions? Any other comments?
No.
Nobody in the audience? Is there anybody on Zoom who has any comments or questions on this one? I see none. Unless there's further discussion among the commission, could I have a motion to approve the stormwater management permit for SW 2023-002?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Do you need stamped copies of all the plans we've submitted? I don't think we've given you any stamped copies of the plans yet.
As long as you can submit stamped digital copies, were the ones submitted digitally stamped?
We haven't stamped anything yet, so we can just
Okay.
provide stamped copies of all the plans that we've initially submitted.
Yeah, but a digital version is okay since they don't need to look
Just
at them.
digital.
Yeah, that would be great, and I can have the permit out to you next week sometime.
Thanks.
Thanks, Rob.
hate
Bob.
Brittany's idea.
All right, so we're moving on to certificates of compliance. We have a lot of them to go through, but just note that I'm going to remove and table the number 14 SE 83-1319, 15 Highland Street. Brittany found some last-minute issues that we need to discuss, and Down Cape couldn't be here for that discussion, so I'll just table that for next time. Otherwise,
Here, 15,
15 Highland Street, SE 83-1319.
we're gonna get past the 198, here we are.
There is somebody on Zoom, but I don't think that's anyone from Down Cape. There is someone on Zoom, but I don't think that's a Down Cape representative.
It's Mark.
I would not believe. So that is fine. Just wanted to give them a chance to say something if they were, but they're not.
I can't even see this stuff.
It says Mark.
Says Mark on it.
Maybe just
All right, we have requests for certificate of compliance for SE 83-2223 4 Marsh Point, SE 83-2224 10 Marsh Point, SE 83-2241 24 Scallop Road, SE 83-274 198 South Street, SE 83-320 198A South Street, SE 83-321 198 South Street, SE 83-1097 198A South Street, SE 83-1647 for 198 South Street, and SE 83-2093 202 South Street. Do I have a motion to approve the certificates of compliance for the first two for SE 83-2223 and 2224 with ongoing conditions for allowing for Phragmites management, and then issuing certificates of compliance for SE 83-2241, SE 83-274, SE 83-320, SE 83-321, SE 83-1097, SE 83-1647, and SE 83-2093.
So moved.
So moved, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Pat. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. We finished enforcement. Other business, we approval of meeting minutes for August 17th, 2023. Did somebody,
I read them, they're fine. They're
did you
fine.
write them too?
Yes.
Did you read them?
Edited them.
Did you read them? You edited them?
Yes.
Okay, so.
She always edits.
All right, very good.
Because
All
I
right.
always get things wrong.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I
Opposed?
wasn't here, I can't vote.
So it's fine.
Carries unanimously
Yeah,
with
5-0.
one abstention. All right, any further business not reasonably anticipated?
At our next meeting, we're going to be hosting a public meeting for our bylaw update. Hopefully, there won't be too many questions about that, but we have to have a public meeting for it, and it's going to be great.
Will you send us a copy of that ahead of time so we can read through everything?
Yes, there were only, so it's been through staff comment and comment from town council. Town council just changed a lot of the wording, but not any of the content. So you'll be seeing mostly the same exact thing we reviewed in person at our working meeting, just a little words here and there edited. But I will send it all along, and it'll be posted on the website for everyone to see before the next meeting.
Okay. Anything else?
I just want to say Kathy did a wonderful job with the open space thing. She did a lot of the bull work with that.
Did.
You did a lot of the beautiful pictures.
That's the fun part.
Thank you.
All right, unless there's anything further, then do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned at 6:53.